So I'm here today with Veronica Barrera, and I she interviewed me. I think it was 4 years ago or something. It was a really long time ago. And Carlos was just interviewed by her this week, and he messaged me, and it was like inspired me. I'm like, wait, why haven't I interviewed her? This is crazy. So I reached out to her at the last minute, and she was so kind to take the time today. And I'm such a fan of her work and all the things that she's done for voice actors. And I think we were even nominated one year together at SOVAS. I feel like we were because we talked about it at the awards show. And that year, neither one of us won. So I I had written an article. Well, Joan and Rudy from Silvas asked me to write an article, and then they asked me to write it on podcasting. So I did, and that was about a month ago. And it really, I have to tell you, it really made me think about all the voice actors I know that either have been hired in a podcast, have their own podcast, want to start a podcast, or thinking about starting a podcast. And I think it's such a really great opportunity to be able to express yourself as an actor and bring something to the community. So, Veronica, here's the question for you. And I'm gonna let you introduce yourself too in a second. But you can like maybe add this to your introduction. How did you get inspired to start your own podcast? When did it start and why did you start it?
Well, what's funny is I started it back in 2019 and I didn't know what I was doing. So I said to myself, well, who am I, watching at the time? And I think it was Chuck Duran and Stacy of VO Buzz Weekly. And I was at the time, I was like, still, I felt like newish to VO, but I was like, you know what? I think it'd be kind of cool because I've been taking classes for a while and I wanted to do something to give back to the community. And that's how it started. And for me, I was very fortunate to have so many great mentors, teachers, you just kind of paved the way. And I thought I can give back to. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking it up and, flying by the seat of your pants type of thing. And here we are. I don't know. I think, is it so 29? So six years later.
Six
Uh,
years, six years. We've been doing a Zoom interview thing for 5 years, and it didn't become really a podcast until a couple years ago.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know the challenge. I know the challenge in doing this, and I know it's not just who to have on, but it's also the technical part and also being in the mood. Like you just got to get up for it no matter what. And I think that's a really great muscle. Um, so yours, what tell the audience what your podcast is called and why you named it the way, what inspired you to name it that.
Well, actually, it was originally called Voice Acting with Veronica Barrera. And then a couple of years ago, I renamed it to Voice Acting Stories because I realized that we're sharing stories. Yes, we're all talented and people I bring on are super talented, but we share stories. We're drinking water together. We're not actually breaking bread together, but I thought we're sharing stories. And I decided to rebrand it, rename it, whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of how I again, I again when I was nominated, I again was just like, whoa, this is a lot. Had to get all dressed up and swanky. That was not the end goal. And I just do it because I love it. I mean, I don't really make money off of it. I just, you know, but we have to pay money for the podcast, all this stuff. And,
I know. I'm trying to figure out like if I could just cover my costs. That's the thing. Yeah, monetization is probably like the next step, and that's something
mhm,
that I think is important too, just
yeah,
because it does cost money and it is not free for us to do it,
no,
but that's okay.
no.
I spend, that much money on my Libsyn is like two coffees, so it's not that bad. It's the editing that after a while it becomes a little bit expensive. Okay, so voice acting stories. I mean, it says what it is, which is great. You don't have to wonder. What do you feel? I know you've been doing this a long time. What do you feel was the most inspiring person you ever was able to interview?
Oh my gosh, so many.
I know.
I lost count. It's like asking.
Okay, give me a
Oh
top
my,
three. Give me top three.
top three. Okay. Eric Bauza was an incredible find. I actually bumped into him at a not a Comic Con, but a sort of a Comic Con, but it was like anime convention in Pasadena, 2019, I think, maybe or so. And I knew a friend because my husband and I went together, and then she was like, "Yeah, you should be on Eric. Eric should be on your podcast." And I was like, "Okay." And then I'll go find him. And then I was trying to look at some trinkets and buying toys, because I have a problem with buying toys. And and so then Eric goes, "Yeah, I'll be on your podcast." And I was like, turned around and I was like, "Is he talking to me?" Like I don't know who he's talking to. Um, oh my gosh, so that was really exciting, and now it's like you can't even get him because he's like
I
he's an
know.
Emmy winner and he's like so
Yeah,
busy.
we interviewed him too. He's such a great guest, and he's a very inspiring story.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's incredible how he came from Canada to LA, and he has a son, and
he's an animator.
yep,
Yeah.
animator, and it was really nice to talk to him.
What's
Let's
another
see.
one?
Oh goodness. Oh my gosh. I should have been more prepared.
Well, I didn't give you any prep. There's no prep in
Nope.
this thing.
Nope. Nope. There's
I
no prep.
no prep. Okay, well, Eric Bauza. So we'll just go with Eric Bauza for now.
Sure.
So what do you feel? I mean, I know from my point of view, from us interviewing him, what I feel is like a really great example for someone trying to change their career, getting into this business. And I have my own point of view.
Hmm.
What do you feel that he did specifically that gave him his start? Like, what do you feel was the thing that he did that was very brave?
Well, I would say, and if anything, he's putting yourself out there. He, started as an animator, and then, one thing led to another. And then he was like, hey, I can do, my, threw his name out there and like, hey, I can do Scratch or whatever it is. And that's probably how he got in
That
because
is,
he was like, that was the initial thing.
he asked.
Mm-hmm.
Mimi has the saying, because when we started partnering together doing casting about 10 years ago, she must have said this to me 100,000 times. If you don't ask, you don't get. Because I was kind of person where I hate asking for things. It's like not in my DNA. It's not how I was raised. So she basically beat that into my brain, and I have to tell you, it is so simple but so powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing I felt he did. He asked for what he wanted to somebody he knew, and he got his break.
Yep.
And that shows how we, first of all, I mean, luckily he's in Nickelodeon, so obviously that's a plus.
Sure.
But believe me, they could just say no, because I've worked
Yeah.
with Nickelodeon for years. That's not like they have not running around, giving people opportunities to do scratch tracks there. So I feel like he was really brave in that instance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what other, when after you interviewed him, I mean, during your interview, what other inspiring thing do you feel like he told the audience from your point of view?
I guess for me, it was, coming from, a different country, coming from Canada. Yeah, it seemed like much, but he took a risk coming from Canada because he would go back and forth between LA and Canada a lot. And then he's just, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm just sick of it. And he moved. And then that's a risk. I identified with that because I also took a risk. I moved from Michigan to LA, didn't know anybody, didn't know nothing.
You're a
I had,
Michigander.
yes. And so, I really identified with that because I realized, oh wow, we have not the same story, but I know what it takes. It takes gumption to do that. And it's not easy. Leaving your family, leaving your friends, and I was interviewed a while ago. I said that I sometimes think that's a big risk.
Well, it's not. It's very difficult. I know a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of actors I've talked to, are like, "Well, maybe I should just move to Los Angeles and have more opportunities." And you do have more opportunities. I mean, you do. I just the way it is, especially in animation. I don't know so much for commercial necessarily, but definitely in animation itself. Um, what was the most surprising guest? Without saying
Oh,
anything bad.
no, no, no. My
What was
gosh, let me
what was like when you interviewed them? You're like, oh my God, I had no idea.
Oh my gosh, let me look on my list of who I've had. So let me refresh my memory here. Um, I think it was recent. Um, Let me think here real quick. I want to make sure I say their name right because Michael Scott.
Oh,
Yeah,
Michael Scott. Yeah, I interviewed him like a month ago. He's
yeah,
great.
yeah. He was on my not to do list, but he was on my get on the podcast because some you ask and you don't know if people are going to say yes or no, so it really depends. He was really inspiring, and again, like I was like, man, he's got a whole story again. Like his backstory is different. He was in the military and this, that, and the other. And like that's why he has so much breadth and depth with these characters that he creates because he understands it. And I was like, man, I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is like a TED talk, So sometimes when I don't always just have them on for everybody else. I also have people on so I can learn and like get the inside scoop or whatever you want to call it. And
No, it's great to have the inside scoop and to learn. What do you feel from the podcast that you do that actors like? What do you think they take away at the most of? Like, what do you feel like would be like a kind of a consistent takeaway for you?
I feel like they're so appreciative of me asking or reaching out to them. You're like, oh my gosh, your list is staggering of people that you have on, and you picked me. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm also, I get nerdy and I nerd out too. So I think they're appreciative and just grateful. And we get to learn a lot about each other. And like I said, I enjoy it, because for a while I thought I was going to quit. And because I had to, at one point, I'm sure you've probably had those types of feelings because you're like, oh, it's so much work, it's all this, and like, and then when I get done, I'm like, I feel full. Like I feel full with everything that I've accomplished. And just because it's a lot of prep work. I send out a script ahead of time. I do all this, and so that way we're not like, oh, what are we talking about? That type of thing. So I think they're really appreciative of how much, I guess, time and effort I like get all that information together, and then I'm just like, oh, okay. So it's just really exciting, like Crispin Friedman. I had him on, and I was like, whoa, I almost like choked realizing his IMDb profile, and I was like, oh gosh, that I didn't realize that was a big titan to get because it's Crispin, and he came on and it's just so great. And like I said, like he's a titan. Like it's just
Yeah, that's
I
so
don't
cool.
know how I'm able to do it. I just ask again.
Yeah,
Gumption.
see, you
Mm-hmm.
have to ask, and if you don't ask, you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so where do you see yourself in like 3 years from now? Are you going to continue this podcast? Do you feel like you want to maybe help other people with their own podcasts, or is there some other goal you have in mind for yourself?
Actually, I've been thinking about teaching how to create a podcast.
Well, as a matter of fact, Veronica, what a small world. Um, let's talk later. All right, yeah,
Sure.
so I was thinking the same thing. Um, but I feel like there's three different parts of
Mm-hmm.
podcasting, and one is development.
Yep.
That's the first. So the idea. First, you have to have the idea,
Yep.
figure out right, figure
Mm-hmm.
out what you want your platform to look like. There's so many different kinds of podcasts, not just, voice acting ones, but there's also, dramas. I mean, there's so many. There's so many things
Sure.
you can do. I
Mhm.
just worked with an actor, did their narration demo, and she's really into crime dramas. And I'm like, you're a voice and you're a passion. Why don't you have your own podcast? She's like, what, really? And I'm like, yeah. So I actually did some artwork for her and sent it to her. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so inspired now. Um, I feel like the idea and the creativity of it, it keeps us alive and it keeps the spark. Um, what do you feel like is a good tool for if someone wants to start their own podcast? What do you feel is a good tool to get to like figuring out what your platform should be?
Well, I think the first thing is find something that you're passionate about to talk about. Because if you're not passionate about it, then it's not going to come through and no one's going to really take the time of day to listen because it's saturated beyond within the podcast community. It's like super saturated. So I would definitely say pick something that you're really passionate and you find joy in because then it doesn't really feel like work. um, I've talked to so many actors, casting directors, agents on the show. Like it's audio engineers. Like I've lost count. I don't know what number I'm at on my episode. I don't keep count. I mean, I probably should, but I don't remember. But again, like I said, it's all about finding something that you love because if then it doesn't really feel like work.
Well, also, I think to sustain it for a long time because a lot of
Hmm.
people just stop. Not that
Yep.
you have to do this for the rest of your life.
No, no.
No one's obligated. It's not a death sentence. It's not, it's not a long-term sentence that you have to do forever. So okay, so after you've figured out what you want it to look like, do you figure out the length? Do you figure out like if you it's a guest format? Do you figure out your branding, your logo? Like what would be the next step? Would branding be the next step?
Probably the branding be the next step. I created my graphic on Canva, and because I also have a graphic design background, I was able to like figure out I wanted it punchy and bold, and someone to like, oh, that's cool, whatever that is. And it took me a few minutes to like figure out how I wanted that. Then I had to go in and like, okay, what's the name of it going to be called? It's got to be catchy. It's got to be, something catchy. Because again, when I first started it, don't do what I did. I didn't make a catchy title. It was so long, and I was like, man, when I tell people, what's your podcast about? Voice acting with Veronica Barrera. And I'm like, oh, that's too long. And so then again, a couple years ago, I rebranded, renamed it because I was like, okay, it needs to be short and sweet. It can't be like something crazy. So again, do I wish I would have started that from the beginning? Yes, but that's okay. It doesn't matter.
We
I think.
we had a yeah, we had a different name at first. And I'm not going to tell you who the person was because they're very well known in the community. But
Sure.
I got a letter from their attorney. I didn't know them, never met them before in my life. Got a letter from their attorney, a cease and desist letter to change the name
Mm,
instead of just calling and say, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but." Um,
right.
so I think doing a search on the name might be good.
Mhm. Yeah. But mine was too long just in length. I felt like it was my name is great, but I think it was my name is already long enough as it is. So I don't want to make anything longer. So make it something quick, make it, something that's easy to identify, and then you can go from there. Then I had to figure out, okay, what platform I'm going to post this on. There's so many different
Which
platforms.
one do you use?
I use Libsyn.
Me too.
I use Libsyn and I've used them since day one because they were like, that's the one you go to. And there's some other ones too.
It's
Then I had to,
easy. It's easy though. I think it's easy to man
oh,
to.
yeah, like you can schedule out. I love that. That's like my favorite thing to do. I love scheduling everything because while I'm asleep, it's working. So,
Um, excuse me. Yeah, so that's a really great tool, I have to tell you. The one thing I did is I actually asked one of my students who had a podcast, Kelly Washington, and because I felt very lost, I would go on Clubhouse and follow all and go into all the podcast rooms, and I'd be like, this sounds so overwhelming and intimidating, and can I really do this? And even though I'm a sound engineer, and then that's what you would think it'd just be easy, but
right.
it's more than that.
Hmm.
It's not just the technical part, it's everything else that comes with it. Um, So she actually helped me in the beginning, just at least get figure, this is how you do this is how you do that. It only took her like an hour or 2 hours to help me. And I have to tell you, getting help or asking someone for help is, I think, one of the best things you can do, especially if you feel stuck, or you
Yeah,
feel overwhelmed or scared, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I also remember like, oh shoot, I have to edit this. And then that's how I got really good at editing. I tell you what, like it was so stressful. Like I would never have a consistent day where I posted. I was like always random when I first started. If you listen to when I first started, just humor me, listen to my first couple episodes. The first 50 sucked, right? So they
That's
weren't very
50?
good. Yeah, they were horrible. They were horrible. And I'm
Five?
not I'm
Oh,
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They were very bad. Like I recorded one in the car with another guest, and then like I remember I thought, oh my gosh, why did I do that? That was dumb. And then I recorded on Skype. Don't ever record on Skype, okay? Don't do it. It's horrible. It just was not fun, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to keep consistent. And then I started writing scripts, and then I started like getting really organized and structured with it because I have to. Otherwise, it's got to be like a well-oiled machine. Now I have it down so it's a well-oiled machine.
great. That's great. Do you do your stuff through Calendly?
I don't. I am old school. I will email them for dates, and then we get to that point, and then all right, I'll send a Google Calendar invite, and then I'll have all the details in there, and blah blah blah, and then that's how I kind of do it. Probably should at this point, but that's a good note. All
I
right.
did for a while.
Okay.
I was doing it on Calendly for a while, and it had things like they could upload their picture and upload their bio, and it was a whole thing. And then part of the problem was some people don't respond to emails very well. Sometimes, people get busy and or they don't know how Calendly works. You would think they'd know, but
Right.
yeah. So yeah, that's a lot of podcasts. That's a lot of podcasts. I can't even. That's so how. So you have hundreds. I'll have to go to your thing and count how many. You don't know how many you have?
Let me see. 278.
Oh Lord, crazy. That's
Well, one thing I started doing to make it look like I'm working smarter, not harder here. Um, I started if every time I have a podcast that's an hour, I split it in half, and then I have two parts.
I've done the two-part thing once in a while. I feel better about just getting it down to like under 40 minutes, just because I feel like not everybody has the attention span for an hour or the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, picking and choosing what you were getting rid of. In the beginning, Veronica, how did you feel about listening to yourself?
Hated it. Hated it. I did not. You're gonna laugh, but I didn't like the
Oh no,
sound
I
of my
hated mine
voice.
too. I hate
Yeah,
mine
I
too.
was like, I sound like that. Golly.
I sound like sound like I'm a drunk person who has Alzheimer's. Like I can't
No.
remember words sometimes, or I stutter. Um, and I used to take like I just did the thing. I worked a little bit with John Walkus, and he gave me a really great tip. When you feel like you trying to find a word or don't know what to say, just take a pause and then start to talk again. And I sometimes forget that because my brain works faster than my mouth, and so I get like jumbled up. Um, you would think the intros and outros were the easiest. Those are the hardest for me because it's just me, and that's I sometimes have done like 6 or 7 takes, and then I cut each little pieces together to make myself feel like I know what I'm doing. Um, but I think that's when as voice actors and voice directors and casting, we hear things differently, I think, than most people. Don't you
Hmm.
think, Veronica?
Oh, absolutely. I had to get over that quick. I was like, well, if I'm doing this podcast, I have to like the sound of my voice because I'm editing it every week. And so that's how I got really good at editing because then
What tool are you using for editing?
Adobe Audition. I
Okay.
use the multi-track to like get everything ready, get all my assets. That means the intro music, the outro music, the now the podcast is sponsored by VA for VO. So that was really exciting for they sponsored it for the year. And, sponsorship wasn't really something I had thought about, because I was just churning them out. I felt like the Energizer Bunny. Let's go on and going and going. And at some point, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to need to take a break. So I took a break this week. It's okay to take breaks. I'll see you post like, we'll see you next week. Or like, this week was just too much. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on next week. How about that? Because I think, you keep going and going and going, you're going to burn out at some point. And I think it's good to take breaks. Otherwise, then what's happening is you're just like you lose that joy, you lose that passion, right? I was talking about that earlier, and you don't want that to happen because burnout is real. It's a very real thing. And I was at one point, like I said earlier, I was going to quit the podcast because I thought, no one's listening. My numbers aren't good and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? That's not what it's about. It's about giving back to the community. This is what this is about. And if they listen, great. If they don't, so then I just stop focusing on the numbers.
Yeah, I think when you focus on the numbers, I mean, sometimes I open it and I'm like, oh my God, that many. Sometimes I'm like shocked that
Mm-hmm.
that many people have downloaded stuff. I was like, who are these? Who are these people? It's not me doing the 3,000. um, here's a question. Here's a question for you. I just had I did a podcast a few months back with David Hayter, who's really an incredible actor and writer. He wrote X-Men and um, he's Solid Snake and you know, just an unbelievable man. I met him at an award show and asked him to be in the podcast after he had about 3 or 4 drinks. And so he showed up and he goes, I don't remember how I said yes to this because I don't do these things anymore. I said, really? So then I reminded him and he's like, oh, wow, that was good. So he reposted the live podcast on his social media and we got hacked and it was really bad. And I know yours is not live. Um, Luckily, he's such a pro. I was able to cut out all of us freaking out about it. I think a few people were there. I think Carlos might have been there. I'm not sure. Um, but have you ever had a podcast where you're like something happens that is so outrageously like unexpected that you have to compose yourself and regroup in order to get back on track?
Mm. Well, because we live in an apartment complex, sometimes they make I won't say house calls, but they check in, like, check the smoke fire alarm, that type of thing. And so I was in the middle of interviewing Ellie Ray Hennessy, and she's amazing. And I remember thinking to myself, there was a knock at the door, like a pound door, and I was like, oh, I had told her ahead of time. I was like, "Hey, I'm letting you know," but that was the only time she could do it, and I was like, "Okay, I'm letting you know right now. There's like this. They have to check the fire alarm, blah, whatever it is, and I'm sorry. And if I turn it, so then she's okay, it's all right. Don't worry about it. It's all right." And that's because that's not kind of how she how she talks. And so then they came in and I had like muted my screen, turned my everything off because I just like I don't want to see it. And then I had to go back in and edit that out because I was like, all right, we're back. It's just okay, that
Oh,
was cool. It
you
was
can't.
and I kept going. I don't know if there's other issues.
Well, you live alone, right? So,
Well, I live with my husband, but I feel like that was one that was like, oh my gosh, I was so like embarrassed, but I kept going with it because I was like, all right, well, she's a pro, I'm a pro, I can do this. So we just kept going.
that's good. You know what's really great about that too is like if you bring that into a session, that ability to stay calm and to just keep moving forward no matter what happens, because that's a skill and that's not a skill that everybody has automatically. It sometimes has to be learned,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Absolutely.
You don't flip out.
Mm-mm.
Um, yeah, having worked in entertainment for so long, the flip outs don't ever usually work out too well. If you're the one flipping out, it's never a really good thing. So now we talked about talking about podcasts, we talked about the idea, the branding, the name, understanding how to record. So, do you ever use like a program for you to record the other person at the same time? There's a many different podcast programs.
Yeah, I went through a few actually. Um, I went through cleanfeed.net. I tried that. That was nice. And then I tried Zencaster. That was good. Don't do Skype. I never do that again. You probably don't,
Don't do
but
one like Riverside or
Riverside was really nice. I liked it. It was just a little on the pricier side, so I had to like figure out. So and I use Zoom. And so another thing I do is I do a backup recording. So I use my voice in my DAW and I ask them if they have the capability to record a backup in their DAW. So it sounds really pristine when we put it together and they don't know. So the Zoom is a buffer. It's a backup.
that's
And
great.
that's how I treat it like a session because I don't know how else to do it because in a session things could go wrong. That's why I just had a session the end of July and it was directed and I recorded a backup in my DAW just as a buffer in case their engineers or whatever it is had an issue because that's a big pro move. Always do that.
Yeah, another easy hack is record audio in QuickTime as a backup.
QuickTime. Ooh.
Yeah, that's my hack for the day. I was trying to download a song for something and I couldn't, no matter what I did, no platform would let me download the song. So I'm like, I'm just going to play it on YouTube and I'm going to record it in QuickTime. And it sounded amazing.
Huh.
Yeah. I also have a new hack for recording um, stuff on like on Netflix and Amazon. So for anybody who needs clips for their demos or something, let me know and I'll email me at info@voice-masters.com and I'll send you the hack. I don't want to put it on here. I don't want Netflix to find out. So no, no, no. Um,
Shh.
but it's a really good hack. And I just did it myself for SOVAS nomination, SOVAS entry thing because
Sure.
I couldn't find a way to download certain shows on Amazon. So okay, so that's really great hack, Veronica. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. I like that idea a lot. I might be stealing it from you shortly. Uh, so then once you do that and you put everything into your multi-track, so then you would have your record from your DAW.
Hmm.
Then you'd also have your recording from
The guest.
a guest, and then
Hmm.
you'd put them together in a
Hmm.
multi-track, and then you would checkerboard it. How would you edit?
Yeah, I guess the best way to say is checkerboard it. That's how I do it. For people that don't know what checkerboard is, it's literally like checkerboards. Like if you look up at a checkerboard, I don't know how else to describe it, but and I
Her,
never knew the
her voice, my
term.
voice. Her voice, my voice.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the best way to describe it. And then I have my intro music and then my intro that I have to verbally say. And I don't always get it in one take either, Paulette, by the way. So it's a lot of work. So I don't always do when I do the intro, I always do it later. So I'm not in front of the guest and like fumbling
Oh,
over
I
my
can't. I
words.
can't do it in front. I've tried. I've actually only a few times has it worked out. When I did Joan and Rudy's, it was actually not bad, but I practiced it a lot. So because it was Joan
Yeah.
and Rudy, I don't want to like
Yeah.
mess me
So
up in
when
front of Joan and Rudy. Is like,
yeah. I always do those separately. That way it takes the edge off and we could just focus on the content, just have fun and just keep it real. So
yeah, I do exactly the same thing. It's much better. And usually then if I try to do an intro and I just cut out the whole intro, the,
or like they'll and when we're live
the
then they'll
crappy
say
intro.
oh this is no not like crap intro but they'll say oh it's actually pronounced this and I'm like all right and then I can edit that out in the podcast and then it looks and then the other thing that I do is like the tail end I do have like the sponsor at the end and then the outro music and all that stuff and at the other thing I do this is a fun little thing I don't know if you do this but I like to put in bloopers. Now, if they happen organically, I will put them in. I
That's
put,
so fun.
yeah, I've put in
I'm
bloopers. So
jelly now. I'm
I've been
totally
doing it for
jelly.
years. Yes.
I'm totally jelly.
Yeah. So if it happens, like, or like, I don't remember what the blooper was, but it was so funny. I think it was Ellie Ray. We probably had a lot of fun, and I don't remember what was said, but or was it Mia? I don't know. But there was some bloopers that were just so funny. I was just turning red because I was laughing so hard. But I kept a couple of them and I just put them at the end.
I,
So,
I love that. I love
hmm
that idea. That's really cool. When I first started, I haven't been doing this lately, but when I first started, I was trying to get, because it was me, Ashley, and Mimi, and that
hmm
we would take turns. Um, and then I would be like, I want you to tell your own story at the end, like it's Tales from the Booth. So tell your own story that relates to the podcast. And so I was doing that for quite a while, and I couldn't get anybody else to do it. They were like, oh, oh. They just like wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. I was like, okay, fine.
sure.
So I kind of stopped doing that, but I enjoyed it because I've had so many experiences recording actors over the years, and I don't really get a place to share any of that information.
hmm
And a lot of different really incredible experiences. So I love that idea. That is so cool. So let me ask you one more question here. If you were going to do a class, would you, how long do you think it would be? How many weeks do you think it would take for somebody to feel like the development part, the branding part, the, the outreach part, the recording part, finishing it? Because I feel like if you're going to do a class, you need to have a finished product at the end.
Right.
Then it's just
Right.
like, then no one's really, most people have ideas and then they don't do them
Right.
to really
Right.
make them like, okay, we have to do the whole thing. So you actually
hmm
at the end you go like this is great, and you even, that's just my point of view.
Right.
What do you think?
I feel like um on average I would say a 4 to 6 week class. Just because there's so much content. There's so much to put into this. Now, if you already are a voice actor, you're already halfway there. So now it's just a matter of because you're already editing and you're submitting auditions, right? So I figured that's oh well, if I'm already doing that, I'm already halfway there. Now it's just a matter of all these other little pieces and coming with a name and the branding and all this and that and editing. Like, because trust me, if you do a podcast, you're gonna get really good at editing. I promise you, you're gonna be like, you'll hear things like I can hear things are like, oh, I hear mouth noise from me. Let me
Yeah, I feel
cut
like
that out.
I feel like I sound like I have emphysema.
Oh, jeez. No, you don't.
I cut out all my breaths.
Yeah, but I leave the breaths in because I think it makes us human.
As long as you don't sound like you're dying, then it's good.
Well, then yes. If it's like a cut that
That's what it
out.
sounds to me. Okay, 4 to 6 weeks. I was thinking four, but I think maybe six would be better. 5 to 6, I think would be better idea. I think that would be
hmm
good. We'll talk after. We'll talk after. We'll put something
Sure.
together. That would be
Sure.
fun. I'd love to do it with you. Um, does anybody have any questions? I want to open the floor up for questions. See if anybody has anything they would like to ask. Teresa.
Um, I have an idea for a podcast. I wouldn't want to do it myself, but I want to give you my idea for a podcast to see what you think about it and the title of it. I know a lot about lots of different kinds of arts and theater and all that, so I wanted to title it "All the Arts Dialogue."
All the arts dialogue.
Yeah, yeah,
And what would it be about?
it'd be all the arts, any kind of art form you want. It could be theater, it could be voiceover, it could be a comedy, it could be
So
puppetry, it could be
would you be interviewing people?
interviewing people on all different types of arts and subjects and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
that.
that's a good idea. I
Mm.
think that's a good idea, Teresa. I like it. What do you think, Veronica?
I think that's a great idea. I think, the arts is something that I love. Before I became a voice actor and podcaster, I went to art school and, 4 year university style type thing. And, I think the arts is something that we need to talk more about.
I think so too. I think it's important. My daughter started a magazine a couple months ago because she's a writer, poet, and short story writer. And so she knows all these writers from all over the world. And so she's put together, and an artist. So she put together this magazine. And then her second edition, she's a huge music person. So now it's like a music and writing magazine. So I think you can also start as something and more have it morph as well and figure out what your platform's going to be. And I think that's why if we have a class, I think it would be great to do like test ideas and see like maybe A/B ideas and see which one's the best, or maybe which one seems like would have the most longevity and the most appeal too. Would be really cool.
I thought of another title for it: the Renaissance Woman, or the Renaissance Reflections, or something like that. Because you've heard of the Renaissance Woman,
Yeah,
something on. Yeah.
that's great.
That's cool.
Thanks, Teresa.
I like that.
Yeah. Lyle. Hi, Lyle.
Hi there. Veronica, I think I may already know the answer to this just listening to your conversation. Is your podcast audio only, or is it audio and video?
It's audio only. I am old school.
Okay. Yeah. And then my second question, and you spoke about it at the beginning of the show here. Uh, um, sorry, I had a brain fart here. I'm at the end of my shift and my rope.
Oh, this is my whole every day is like this for me, so I understand. Don't worry about it. It'll
Yeah,
come
that's
to you
good.
eventually.
You were talking about ideas, coming up with the idea first, and
Mhm.
then go from there. How overwhelming was it? You may have answered it earlier on, but how overwhelming was it for you to come up with the idea? Because there's a billion ideas out there and a million people to talk to, and then when you talk about podcasts, there's you could have 500,000 people have the same exact idea as you. How do you work to try and make your idea just a little bit different from everybody else's?
Yeah, great question, Lyle. When I first started it, I had a journal and I made notes and notes and I researched because there was really no class on how to do it. Right. So I had to teach myself. And I'm sure Paulette would tell you the same thing. You're asking everybody, like, how do I do this? And so that's what I was doing. I made a journal of, I think, about 6 months of researching and notes and putting everything in this journal. And I still didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't, I think for me, after that, I was like, there's got to be a class or a book on this because this is just ridiculous because I just shouldn't have to be this hard.
Let's have a
Um,
podcast for dummies.
yeah, I mean, that's, we could do that too. Like the books, and so
Like
that was
that.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm serious. I think that's a great idea because was stressed out because I couldn't figure out the content I wanted to create. And so I said to myself, all right, well, voice actors, we use scripts. So I'm going to have a script. I'm going to give them questions ahead of time. Every guest that I have, you don't have to do it that way, but I find that it helps me stay on point and reel them back in because sometimes the guests will be long winded. And then I'm like, okay, let's reel you back in. And you,
Well, how do you start? I mean, you can have questions in advance. I've do that like probably 50% of the time,
Mhm.
but how do you stop the long-winded people?
So then I think for me, laughing is a key. That's my cue. Like when I laugh, I'm like, oh, so you were talking about this the other day, and then I reel them back into the other question. So that I guess the persona of me on the podcast, I had to learn how to like navigate the guest when they got long winded. Sometimes if it was too much, I would edit it out. So again, that's the power of editing. You don't have to put in everything. If they said something, I was like, ooh, all right, we're taking that out. So
I know when I interviewed Simon Kennedy, he was such a great guy. And my podcast was, and we had to do it. We couldn't do it live because of our time difference because he's in
mhm.
Australia. And I was so enamored with him, and he's such a great speaker that I was like, I think it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, oh my
Oh
God,
my god.
a lot. It was a,
Yep.
it was a lot.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Thanks, Lyle. And by the way, Lyle, I hope you got my message, my
I
text.
did.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy you're happy.
I almost cried. It was so nice of you to do that.
Thanks, Lyle.
He sent me a gift, and he knows me very well, so it was like
Aw.
very thoughtful. Um, Rob.
The scripted podcast you did, um, Do you know what format the script was in or what program was used to write it?
She just means I think she just means she sends them uh, questions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I send questions. Thanks, Rob, for your question. What I do is I research every guest that I have on. So then it's homework time for Veronica. I have to research every guest that I bring on because I can't ask the same questions over and over again. So each podcast is catered to the guest.
Yes,
So
but you did a scripted podcast called Your Horror Show.
yes, I did. That was not something that I
Oh,
wrote.
you just read
I
the
was the
words.
performer.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hope that answers your question. Ed.
Hey there. So, um, thank you for this. The mind is tumbling rocks around as we speak. But Veronica, you say your podcasts are old school audio only.
Mm-hmm.
Paulette, your podcasts are new school then, doing
Well,
video, audio and video.
well, let me say something about that.
Okay.
I'm not as consistent as Veronica, and I am also kind of weird about what I post and what I don't. So certain ones I do audio only. Certain ones I do YouTube only, right?
Okay.
I do both, which is rare, very rare. Only if like I feel like this is the one that could win something. Like I know it sounds really horrible, but because I have no time, so I have to be really conscious of the things I choose to post, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not like Veronica. I don't have the bandwidth to post something every single week. So I feel like when the podcast is over, I'm like, this was really great because I feel like for Veronica and I, for this interview today, for me, I feel like this would be best served on a YouTube channel. And I'm going to say reason why. The reason why is because we're adorable. No, I'm joking. No, because
Well, you are, but that's
no, but I feel like because we know people in voice actors, I think it's more relatable if they see us, and I think it's more engaging to some degree. And
yeah.
um I don't know, I just feel like I feel like when I'm trying to teach something to actors specifically, I put that more on YouTube. And the ones that are, I think, more generally, maybe a wider audience, I put on a podcast.
Okay.
So that's kind
So
of my viewpoint for me.
so then that leaves me, so we have traditional audio only, traditional video podcast or interview style. And then what about podcasting from a remote location, not not being done by Zoom or something for the interview, so that you have three people that you're if you're interviewing a team,
Yeah.
whether that team is two or three or however, in a remote studio or location,
Mhm.
that becomes the three, right? And
3 people at the same time in 3 different locations?
not three. Well, that that becomes my question.
Or 3
Is it
people at
better to do it three people on Zoom, or is it three people where you go set up a location and do the interview?
Well,
And because if you do it that way, then you don't get the advantage of being able to drop it into a multi-track necessarily, unless you were doing all ISO records.
that's Mr. Audio Man.
Sorry.
Anybody doesn't know Ed, he's a production sound mixer and worked on multiple A-list shows, and he's unbelievably talented. Veronica, I'm gonna let you answer that. I have my own opinion, but you go ahead.
Oh my gosh, that was a interesting question. So I guess I find that I used to do in-person interviews. And then once the pandemic happened, I had to pivot. We all had to pivot, right?
Right.
So then I had to pivot and then I do them only on Zoom and it's just easier that way because now I can get everybody from around the world and not have to be like, that's why I'm using the Shure mic. You don't have to use this, but I had to deck out my desk with like, I had to look the part, right? So I had to like figure out how I wanted to do it, because for a long time I was doing them in person, and I think about a year or so, and then like again, like I said, the pandemic happened, and then I had to pivot and figure out what was best for the podcast. And I was like, you know what, that way it's just easier. Like I remember Crispin Freeman saying, is it only remote like on Zoom? And I was like, yeah, okay, good, because that's how I do it. I was like, okay, that's fine, so to each their own, I suppose.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think I think some of the bigger podcasts, they have people come in studio, usually like radio shows or things like that, where it's really set up. Getting people to come to a location. I mean, I think if you had a special podcast where that would make sense that you'd have to do it that way. Like if you were going to a film set and or something like that, where that would make sense. Like if you were on location,
Or up on the deck of my boat.
except for
Offer them food.
you can't put the
Offer
engine.
them
You just
food.
can't.
They will show up.
Yeah, you just can't put the engine on. Yeah, well, your boat's not exactly like right in the middle of Los Angeles either. And I don't remember anybody inviting me to your boat. So far, you've never invited me to your boat, and Angel Harper's never invited me to go salsa dancing with her. So I'm already mad. It's like in this chat.
Oh, put on your big boy pants and get over that.
Just invite me, come.
Okay.
All right.
Or you could
Thank you.
ask.
I feel like it's better to do it remotely because I think you'll have more options, right? in front
And
of
more
you.
control.
More
Yep.
control. I don't know about more control, but you're not always having control over the other person's microphone or where they are. I interviewed who was a acting coach. I forget her name. Anyway, she's on my YouTube thing, and I also couldn't put it on because she like picked the echoiest room in her entire house. I forgot, and I was like, what? And it sounded like, it was so bad. And yeah, I made it sound better, but it just wasn't, the quality was so bad I couldn't put it on a podcast.
Yeah, the amount of duds I've had to redo. I remember, I won't say the name. I remember a very well-known, prominent voice actor that came on, didn't use headphones. I had this horrible bleeding through on my end that was like, Paulette, it was bad. Like I'm like, oh my gosh. And I tried everything to fix it. And this was like way back when it was like episode 50 or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't work with this. But I didn't want to re record because this prominent voice actor was so big. And so, I just didn't want to like. So sometimes I've had to re record because of really bad audio. And I'm sure Paulette can understand that. So making sure that your guest that you have on has a bio, has a headshot, that makes it a lot easier for us podcasters to read their bio, this, that, and the other, because I've had guests come on. I'm like, have they ever done a podcast before? Because they keep opening the drawer. Like, I don't know who I had on. It was a casting director. I won't say who, but a casting director kept opening the dresser and closing it. And I was like, what is this? So again, I didn't want to be, that's just a taste of, some of the errors that have happened on the show. But again, nobody sees that because I, I don't make it about that. I try to edit it out as much as I can. And sometimes I've had to re-record.
I've had one of the women from Rugrats, I won't say who she was either, who constantly took phone calls every 10 minutes, every 5-10 minutes, the whole thing, and then didn't mute herself. It's like, crazy. But she was lovely. She was a lovely person. Lyle, do you have another question, sweetie, before we
Just
before we
one
head out?
more, and this may be a completely different subject matter for a completely different day. Paulette, you touched on monetizing podcast. Obviously, you need the idea. You need some kind of audience to present potential advertisers. I was going to ask Veronica if she came up with any kind of marketing or any ideas to pitch to advertisers. to somehow make some money.
Yes, I don't, like I said in the beginning, I don't make a ton of money off of this. But wanted to be very specific with who I picked and worked with. And I like to call it a collaboration, because we're collaborating together. And so I again went in Canva and made a pitch to potential buyers. Yeah, pitch deck, and figured out, okay, like what are the numbers? Now I need to know the numbers of my podcast and all this and that. And then I pitched it to some people in the voiceover industry that have services and stuff. And I'm like, okay. And then sometimes it's no. That's okay too. It's going to happen. Again, you have to ask for what you want, right? And so I had, XYZ number packages that they could pick from for payment. And then that was that. And so then I reached back out to VA for VO. Was it this year or is it last year? I don't remember. I think it was last year. And I had my pitch deck, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to, sponsor blah, blah, blah. And, so again, like, common theme is ask for what you want. And sometimes it happens.
Sometimes. That's right. Sometimes it happens. Oh my gosh. Well, that went fast. That hour went fast. Thank you so much, Veronica, for being here today. And I'm sorry I didn't prep you in advance, all my scary questions. Uh, I just, have so many in my mind, so it comes up for me easily. But I know haven't done 280 interviews or whatever you've done, which is crazy. I mean, I've done this Friday thing for 5 years, probably 500 times, but not everything is an interview. But I really,
Sure.
really, really want to thank you, and we will definitely chat if this is something that you're interested in. I would love to do something with you, because I admire
Absolutely.
you, and I love you as a person and an actor, and I'm just really proud to be a podcaster with you. And I hope one of us wins this year. Uh,
Yes, of
yeah, that
course.
would be nice. I'll scream and cry for you.
Yes,
But
it was such an honor to be asked to be on. I didn't, I don't always get to come and watch them live, but it's always a pleasure to know you and Mimi, and you inspire so many of us.
thank you.
We see you for who you are as a person, and again, like, you're amazing at what you do, and it's evident by people keep coming to back because of the type of person that you are.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. That's very sweet. Thank you so much for that.
Hmm.
I'm trying not to cry. I'm not gonna cry. Okay. Um, I've come a long way since the beginning of Voice Masters. I used to cry all the time. Okay, well, thank you so much. And I think I will put this one on YouTube. I think it's really inspiring, and I think we might have something really cool to create together, and that always makes me happy. So,
Absolutely. Here to help.
okay, love you guys. Thank you for being here today. And if you have any questions or need anything, need the hack I told you about, email me at info@voice-masters.com, and I'll send you how to record things on Netflix or stuff. Okay. All right. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.